the guys from Ping, they've kind of shown me how much the equipment matters.
I just love that I can hit any shot I kind of want.
We're going to be able to tell some fun stories about what goes on here to help golfers play better golf.
Welcome back to the Ping Proving Grounds podcast. I'm Shane Bacon, Marty Jertson with me. Marty, we're at Putting World.
Yeah.
We're in Scottsdale, which means it's WM Phoenix Open Week.
This week is super fun, Shane, because this place is buzzing. We're at the tournament today, and it's just like it's a who's who. It's one of those weeks where, you know, people are going to be texting you, calling you, hey, I'm at the tournament.
Can I get
here.
tickets?
Can I come by the office? Can I get some tickets?
Do you have any extra tickets floating around right now? Before we get to our guest, I wanted to ask you about your experience playing in the Phoenix Open. Because you've played in one or two?
I played in one.
What year was it?
2020.
Okay. Can you tell about the experience doing that?
It was kind of like my life's dream to play in the Phoenix Open because I grew up as a standard bearer. So I was 8, 9, 10 years old, carrying the sign. I grew up in a small town, Globe, not too far from where Tony grew up. And, it was such a journey. At that time, it was like 4 hours to get here. Wake up at 4 in the morning, standard bearer. And I remember bringing back to school the next day autographs, Davis Love III and John Daly and Bobby Clampett or what have you. And just growing up, being a standard bearer, then it was like, okay, I want to play in this someday. And I never thought I would be able to. But 2020 was a dream because my kids were there, and I love that my kids could go in. When you play, people might not know this, but when you get to 16, you're like, how's my family gonna get in there and see me? Well, they take care of your family. You have a
Thunderbirds know what's
there.
going on. That's right.
You have a person there that's like, okay, family, boom, we'll get you right into the front spot. They watch. I hit beautiful shots on 16. Go over, say hi to my family. I'll never forget.
Cheers or booze? You said beautiful shots. What was it like?
I had cheers. I hit my both rounds, didn't make the cut, but both rounds I hit awesome shots. Kevin Stadler told me, hey, whatever you do on 16, hit one less club.
Okay,
because
pumped
you
up?
will be juiced, and he was absolutely right. It was like, 160 to the hole, normally be a 9-iron, pitching wedge all day, crush it. Right at the flag. It was cheers. It was cheers.
So Marty having a legendary moment. We got a legend with us today. I want you to introduce him. I know you know him very, very well, and you've worked closely with him for what I'm hearing is 30-plus years at Ping.
Yeah. Tony Serrano was one of my mentors at Ping, and I've learned a ton from Tony. And it's awesome to have him on the podcast. He has poured his most recent part of his career at Ping has poured his blood, sweat, and tears into our putter family, which we're going to talk about. But what's fun about Tony is he's worked with the Solheim family over all 3 generations. So that's yes, exactly. Going on the 4th now, 4th generation. So Tony, I think I want to kick that off and ask you what it was like, because when I started at Ping, Karsten had already passed, and you had personally worked with Karsten. And then his son John A, and now John K, and now the 4th generation. So what has that journey been like?
It's been amazing. And first of all, thank you for having me. But when I first started, Karsten was very involved in engineering and everything in the plant. And just kind of watching him and the things that he really focused on, the details and some of the stuff that he was showing everybody and teaching everybody, from the engineers all the way down to the people on the line in production, that the details really matter, and that even a person on the line, if there's something you're not comfortable with, you can stop it and then just make sure we're doing the right thing is always what's kind of his biggest message. Make sure we're doing the right thing.
If you don't mind going back, 3.5 decades or so when you started at Ping, were you a golfer? How did you kind of get involved in this great company, and kind of how did you first start at Ping? What was your first gig?
So I came down on a tour. I went to school
from
at
where?
Northern Arizona University.
NAU.
We came down on a tour to tour the machine shop. And at the time, in the late 80s, our machine shop at Ping was one of the more higher technology machines and stuff, CNC. Carson was always looking to how we could get better. So we had some of the first CNCs in the Valley were in our shop. So we went down as a group to see that. And while I was down there, I just asked, hey, do you guys do internships? And they were kind of like, well, what's that? So long story short, I did an internship, and then I went into full-time.
Were you a golfer?
I was not. I mean, I dabbled a little bit down in our hometowns, but not really. not really.
And Kent Notes, who was here a bit ago, was kind of digging into your chip-in and stuff like that. Are you a golfer now?
I am.
Okay. And how is the golf game?
I wish it was better. I kind of hover between an 8 and a 9, but want to be 5. But, well, you know.
Well,
I love it.
It's a tough world to live in. I mean, you got all these
yeah,
guys
look
that are like
around
playing
you.
in tour events and playing major championships. I feel intimidated showing up as well. I had to play this guy in a match yesterday. It was tough.
Yeah. Our whole group of engineers, from Corey and Marty and all these guys, are so good. So we always joke around, hey, make sure you guys are developing product for an 8 and 9 handicap, not just a scratch.
Yeah.
So.
But you putt like a tour player, Tony.
Well,
I mean, come on. He can roll the rock. Tony could roll the rock.
That's where you can make up the shots.
Yeah.
So when you got into ping, when you got into kind of building golf clubs and working in that world, where did you start in terms of what golf clubs you started on, and how did you get into putters?
So my very first project was the LA bag stands.
Okay.
When we did the LA bags when we first started doing LA bags back in the late 80s. So I worked on that and worked closely with Johnny on that. That was a big project for him. And then I went into working on the Woodwoods. So the first Woodwood I worked on was the Zing Woodwoods.
Okay.
And I worked both with Carson and John A on that, and they both had kind of differing opinions on how we should do it. But it was a great experience to hear from both these guys on and they both aligned on what was very important, maybe just different ways of doing it.
Which did you go with, do you feel like? At the end of the day, who won that battle?
It was actually, I have a quick story.
Yeah, for sure.
So
it's a podcast. That's what the point of it.
We were working on Woodwoods at the time. So at the time we had the I2 woods out there, and the I2s were, if you looked at the sole plate, they had kind of had a half circle and a flat and then screws. So it was locked in like a puzzle piece.
Yeah.
So John A and I were working on sole plates that did not have that, and we just added a screw. And John would tell me, well, go show my dad. And I'd go show his dad, and his dad would say, quit working on that. We're not doing that. And I'd go back to John, and John goes, we're fine. Just keep doing it. So
I mean, how stressed are you? You're just like sweating bullets.
Yeah, I'm like 23. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. So then one day I went to Karsten, and this had gone on for a while, and Karsten didn't say a word to me. And he says, follow me. And we walked across the street to it's 21st Avenue, which is now closed off. It's Karsten Way. But at the time, it was a public street, so cars are going through there, whatever. So he walks me out onto this road, and Karsten's, he's up there in age still, and he walks up to the curb of the street, and he just starts swinging this wood as hard as he could against the curb. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And he's swinging as hard as he can. And finally, the sole plate falls off, and it's rolling down the street. So I go pick up the sole plate, and I come back to Carson. I'm like, here, and he goes, let me see that. And I said, okay. And he looks at the sole plate, and he goes, this is good. I go, how's that good? It just flew off. He said, the sole plate, or the laminates from the wood were stuck on the sole plate still. So the glue did not fail. The laminate failed in the wood, so he was okay with it.
Yeah.
And then from there on out, we were good to go.
You were smooth
Teaching
sailing.
moment.
But
wow.
I tell some of the younger guys, back in the day, that's how we did destructive testing.
There you
Carson
go.
would go hit it on the street. And
Try not to hit like a car
cars are
coming
going
by.
and he's swinging as hard as he can. I'm just like, what's going on here? But that's kind of how Carson did it. It was kind of down to just the very basics, right? And that was his way. And I think he went over there to kind of show me and show, I don't know about John, but hey, if they can withstand this, it was a learning moment for me. It's like he was worried about the epoxy not holding.
Yeah.
We didn't have the mechanical lock anymore, and that we showed him that it did hold up. The wood failed, and we'd been doing Woodwoods for years, and they never failed, so he was okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've also heard you worked on the LA, around the office, we'll take a bag and throw it.
Yep.
And go boom, and then make sure it can land and
yep.
stand and not break.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
that's pretty fun.
Marty, that's like old school. They do it a little different now. I know there's a machine that literally picks the bags up and sets them down now.
Yep.
But yeah, the old school is you hit the club against the curb or throw the bag 20 yards and see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. So, Tony, we worked on bags. You worked on Woodwoods. And then what was the transition to next for you?
Yeah, so I worked on, like I said, the Zing Woods, and I went into the ISI Woodwoods. I worked on TSI, TieSci Tech, Rapture V2.
By the way, that's close to my heart because as a junior golfer, that was when I got into ping. Was when
TieSci Tech.
that was the driver that everybody had in junior
TieSci.
golf. I had 2 of them.
Yeah.
Somebody locally tried to change the shaft out for me and screwed it up because remember
really?
you had to take it to like a professional to change the shaft out. But I mean, that was my first. I believe that was really my first introduction to ping.
And that was our first titanium woods.
Right.
So I worked on the fairway woods, and Dan Kupko, who was our lead design engineer there, and he worked on the driver stuff. But we did TieSci Tech, and then into the Rapture stuff, and then I think you came in on some of the Rapture stuff at the end of it.
You were post-Rapture. Is that you, Marty?
Yeah, right at the Rapture. I designed the Rapture Hybrid, which I was following Tony's lead on the driver. And we were tying the whole family together, right?
So how instrumental was he in your career? Like you're coming up, and he's obviously established at this point at Ping. Like, are you bouncing ideas off of him? Is he kind of your Karsten in a way? Is in like how you ask questions and go through the process?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both.
Okay.
Like the driver we've talked a lot about, and Tony was the lead designer. I mean, he's touched a lot of products that a lot of people have loved.
Right.
TieSci Tech fairway woods, right? Titanium with the zirconium sole plate, then tungsten.
We maxed that out.
Yeah, exactly. So Tony leading the Rapture driver, it was like the driver kind of sets the tone for the whole family.
Right.
So that's really where we first started working together. But yeah, Tony's been a great mentor to me and a lot of our engineers coming up on all the nuance. Like, how do you understand the core principles? Because he's worked with Karsten and John for so long, how do you instill all those principles into your day-to-day decision-making, right? And I think that's what Tony's been great at with the rest of the engineering group. Loves to teach.
Tony, how was Marty at a young age? Because, like you see these young prodigy golfers and you go, oh, man, Rory McIlroy, Viktor Hovland, like these guys are great at a young age. How was Marty as a youngster?
I remember the day that Marty was hired, and we went out and we talked to him out at Moon Valley one day. A group of us went out and talked to him. And Marty had a crew cut, and he was all business, man. And when he came in, he was down in manufacturing. So Marty's been on the floor, working on equipment, working with people, learning how the process works. And then you could just see Marty kind of grow from there and then take that, what he learned with working with people on the floor and then with the manufacturing team, and then taking that, and when he got into design and helping out, it just kind of flowed together.
Yeah, and that's what I've loved about Tony's journey is that he's still today now working on putters, which we'll get to, is working across the entire spectrum, and that's what that's what we both love about Ping. You get your hands dirty down there in manufacturing, like making the actual product, then all the way up to designing it and doing what we're here to do, and everyone enjoying the fruits of our labor there is super fun. And even to John Solheim's credit, right, when we were during COVID, when we were all of us office workers are down there building product, John A. Solheim is down there working shifts on Saturday mornings. Everyone's got their face coverings on during COVID, and people didn't know it was him, right? He's down there putting his time in. And that is incredible. You still do that to this day, which I have a lot of respect for Tony on.
Yeah. And for John A. to do that, and that's kind of his style, right? He doesn't want to make a big deal about it. He doesn't want people. He just wants to if you see him, fine, but that's not his purpose to go and say, hey, look at me, I'm down here. He actually is doing it just to help the company.
So let's transition to PLD. Because that goes back to 2016, working with tour players. How did that kind of idea come about, and how was that process like to basically come up with this new line of putters for Ping?
Back then, Chance Cosby was running our tour department, and then our VP of engineering and me, we went and talked to Chance. Or Chance came to us and basically was saying, hey, we need to up our game in putters. We need to do more, because there's competitors out there and other people are doing milled putters and doing a lot of different stuff. And so Paul Wood, our VP of engineering, says, okay, this is what you're going to do. You need to go out and start figuring out how to do this. So 2016, 17, started going out on tour and talking with players and trying to just kind of fill it out to see what they're looking for, what they need, and how,
How are you starting those conversations? Like, are you going up to a Bubba Watson and you're saying, hey, we're thinking about doing this at Ping, we're going to be doing this at Ping, or were you just kind of seeing what their thoughts were on the actual putter line that existed?
Right. I would say a lot of first of all, I was very nervous, so it's tough for me to go with these guys like Lee Westwood and Louie and Bubba and these guys, and just start kicking this conversation up. But our tour reps, Christian Pena at the time and KO, were very helpful with that. Right? They brought it in. They kind of teed it up for me to go in and have these conversations. But our players are so good, and they're very receptive to this, and it takes the time going out there as much as you can, and getting their trust is the first thing that you can actually deliver something. Because that was when I was going out, is our tour reps said, the one thing you cannot do is say, hey, I'm going to get you something, and then not get it to them in a timely manner. So make sure
it's like children.
You got to
don't tell your child you're going to Disney World and then bail on that trip.
So you have to commit, and it's just a little bit of a process of, I think, gaining their trust a little bit, but also producing a good product for them that helps them actually go and win tournaments.
I think early on there, Tony, I remember you brought some samples of putters that even our own staff hadn't seen before from us, right?
I mean, are these like PLD adjacent ideas, like mill-looking putters?
So this, Shane, that's a great question. I mean, even if you take a classic answer design,
right?
And Tony, I want to go into this. Some of the nuanced details that you do. You go back to your machine shop where it all started. What are some of those nuanced things? This is one of the first samples we brought out there, Shane, which is an answer, but you set it down and you're like, wait a minute, this looks different. So there's a lot you can do in the machining process, the speeds, feeds, the cutters. Tony, talk about some of all those little nuanced details in there on those early on samples that's now in our PLD family.
I think that was the one thing that's really important to me, is we have a really good machine shop. And I really wanted to take advantage of them, and really focus on the machining of the putters and just the small details. And it's not just an answer putter like Marty's talking about. It's every surface is important on that. It's the top rail, it's the balance, it's the hosel, and how those should look when you set down that putter is how are the shadows, how are the different milling lines. This is a little bit more aggressive. This is not as aggressive, so you can highlight certain parts of the putter. But it was when we first started going out and talking to these players, it was the top rail thickness, or how it broke off with the toe, and the shadowing and the tangents of the curves and stuff, that they were square, and every line, every milling line, every surface was either parallel or perpendicular to the ball or to the face, but still keeping that classic answered look, right? So a guy, Bubba Watson, puts it down and is just like, okay, I'm used to seeing that. I've won 2 Masters with with an answer putter. This looks good to me, or this is what I want to do. And then just going through that process, say, okay, hey, next time I see you, I'll have that for you. And then it could be 1 iteration. It could take 6 iterations before we get there. But once we get there, the guy has that trust now, and seeing we're making progress in what he likes to see and how it feels and sounds. So,
do you remember a certain moment where you were going through that process with a player and you finally gave them a model and they were like, oh my goodness, this is it? Do you have a moment like that?
There's a couple. One with Seamus Power. This was an interesting thing because we started talking about putters and kind of what he wanted to see, what he liked. So I went back to work, and I think I made 6 different screenshots of things he had said. And then I would send it to him, and I'd say, what do you like, A, B, C, or D? And he said, I like B, but can you give me a little bit of C here? So then I would do the CAD work, and I'd send it again. He goes, okay, I like that. So then this is kind of how the process kind of developed out there for me, was, okay, now you've given me pretty good direction on what you like. Then I'd go print out a 3D printed part and take it out on tour, and then have the guys actually set it down on the green. I'd paint it up black, put white lines, and have them set it down on the green behind the ball and say, okay, is this what you really want? And sometimes it is, sometimes it's another iteration, but my goal was, hey, I'm not going to start cutting apart until you see something you're like, that looks great, and let's go. And then we start making parts and go from there.
And Seamus, Tony, we know from his iPing data, because we study that a lot, your signature of your stroke, his tempo ratio is always really on the slow side.
Correct.
So how did that weave into, you're dialing in, making sure Seamus has what he wants in the setup position, how it looks. What about how does his stroke type inform the design and the hosel?
Right. And the one thing I think with putters is it's a player's got to set it down and look at it and say, that looks really good to me.
Yeah.
That gives me confidence. I know I can. But then under the hood is, okay, well, how do we get the weighting right? How do we get our MOI right? How do we get our CG in the right position? And with Seamus, it actually we ended up trying different materials on the sole plate to get the weight to where it matched his tempo better. So we had stainless steel. I think we ended up doing a carbon or a copper sole plate for him because he needed a heavier head without changing too much about it. So, so getting the right weight to match along with the look that looks good to him is those things have to work together so that he can putt better.
Marty, it's so interesting. Golf is so much about problem solving. Like we talk about it in terms of strategy when you're playing golf, right?
Yeah.
It's okay. This tee shot might not fit my eye. Maybe I had 3 wood, or I can kind of get aggressive here. This whole plays into it. It's so interesting when you develop a new product. It's also about kind of coming up with a problem to solve, right?
Yeah.
It's how can we make this better? PLD was a problem solver in a way. It was introducing this amazing line of putters, but it's also just going through. You're talking to the best players in the world about these certain things, and you're taking their feedback back home to create new concepts and new ideas and new designs. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just that marriage. What Tony's done a great job of is now, like our PLD. So many of golfers out there just love the look of it. I can't tell you how many folks I run across. They're like, man, your guys' putters are awesome now because they have that look.
Yeah.
You can take the same geometry, change the tool path with the cutter just ever so slightly, and this thing will have a totally different look.
Yeah.
But it's going back to Seamus is that marriage of Matt. Then you still got to fit it to their stroke type for them to putt their best, right?
Yep, 100%.
Didn't Bubba have like a weird paint or something on his PLD? Didn't he have like was it like would it change color?
The rainbow?
It was like a rainbow, right?
That was a rainbow putter.
So was that a request from him, or was that you guys presenting him with something different?
No, that was before.
Was that
PLD.
pre-PLD?
It was pre-PLD, yeah. But he was another guy that going on early into it. I remember, I think it was 2018 Genesis, and we'd gone through this whole process I just talked about, and I brought a putter out for him, and he was coming down 10, the short par 4 at Riviera.
Yep.
And so I met him on that green, and he's putting with it, and all the tour guys are out there, and everyone's like, there's no chance. He was saying it's too fast off the face, but then he took it with him and played a practice round, actually put it in the bag that week and won, and went on to win 3 times with it. So you just never know.
You were his best friend that year.
If it goes back to if he sets it down and it fits him, the weight's right, the loft's right, the ball's coming off the way he wants it to roll, the sound, the feel. These guys are gonna, if they're making putts, man, they're gonna, especially him,
for sure.
Right? If he can roll the ball, he's gonna win.
Tony, I want to dive into 2 more players you work with a ton. One is Tony Finau.
Yep.
Like let's talk about the Answer 2D, how that came to be, and how long you were working with Tony, and then what happened with his record after he switched.
Yep. So when Finau first signed with us, he was in a different putter, and it was really hard to kind of get him to make a change or talk about different stuff. And I used to tell myself, it's like his commitment to that putter and his dedication to that is my goal is, man, if I can get him into peen, I hope he does that for us too. I respect what you're doing. We have to earn that from him. We have to show him that.
We've got to make him fall in love with our putter, right?
Back to you got to that trust that we can do stuff. So we went into the lab, spent a lot of time in the lab, and we basically it came down to he's like, I cannot play a blade. It's way too small, way too thin, and I don't want to play a mallet. So we just started talking about he liked the look of an Answer 2, but it just was too small and too light, and then just kind of led to, hey, we stretch that out a little bit, give you a little bit more weight, a little bit more width to it, that it'd still have a really nice look to an Answer 2, but the weight of a mid-mallet or a mallet, and a little bit more forgiveness and just a little bit bigger. And then also we worked on the height of the hosel to match his stroke type.
Yeah.
But what we saw in the lab. So once we got him in there and we started seeing numbers that were connecting with him and what he was seeing and feeling, then from there on we started rolling, and then he went out and won 3 times with that. So
after that.
Right after that. But it was it was a process, all right. And
Yeah.
I respect Tony 100% because I feel like I have a really good relationship where he's pretty honest with me. Like he feels like he can reach out if he wants to try something. So that's really nice, especially from a player like that.
Yeah.
He's such a great guy, anyways. But man, he works hard on his putting, and he's very serious about it.
They do work hard. We talked to Boyd about this too,
Yes.
and Tony, you know, in the lab we were with Jeff Thomas and developed this feature pretty much exclusively for Tony and Boyd, which is our live loft and lie and eye pin.
Yes.
So you can turn this thing on because he has such long arms. His hands, you know, it doesn't look like conventional a lot of times.
The toe will sit up a little
The toe
bit.
kind of sits up. His hands look a little low. His forearms aren't aligned with the shaft. Things of this nature. But we built this feature called Live Loft and Lie, so him and Boyd could plug in their setup position for lie and shaft lean, and they could get live biofeedback, and that's right there in our iPing app.
That's awesome.
You know, because it's kind of the marriage of fitting and teaching is so important from a putter standpoint.
Yeah. So another quick story with Tony is there was a couple years ago where I think we've all seen it. He would take his putter and turn it sideways and hit the toe,
Right.
and would make them. In tournaments, you would see it all the time. And I remember I'd come home from golf and he'd send me a message saying, hey, how do I get this feel of this? How do I get a putter like this? So we started working on something to get a putter that is kind of down the lines of what the feel and some of the attributes he liked about doing that. And so we came up with some prototypes and we've worked on them. Actually, Tony Finau was part of the patent because some of the ideas and some of the work that we did
Was his ideas?
He's part of it's me, John A., and Tony Finau on the patent. And I think it's really important because
Yeah.
that's how we learn. That's how we get better to help players. And all our players, we will do the same with that. We want your input. We want to hear from you so that we can make a good product for you, but not only you, but for everybody to make really good putters.
Can we talk about the Easter egg on the putter covers? How did that start? Marty showed me this today. I didn't never understood that this was a thing.
Tour PLDs. Tony Serrano. They got the Serrano pepper
the
on
chili
them.
pepper.
When did that start?
So it goes back to you met Corey Bacon, right?
Yeah.
Corey's like, you should put a Serrano pepper on this stuff and mark it. That was years ago, and then
Like kind of a joke, right? I mean, just put it on there for fun.
it was kind of kind of fun. And then over the last few years, our ID guys that do some of our head covers have added it into the designs
design
of the
of it,
head.
yeah.
But you kind of got to look for it. It's kind of hidden in there, but it's in there. So it's kind of not taken off, but it's kind of developed its own thing. And so now we put a chili pepper on our prototypes going out on tour, and that only tour players have those putters with that. And then once we get into commercialization, you wouldn't see it on there. But yeah,
So they have to personally touch your hands basically to get the Serrano
It's a
pepper on
Serrano
there.
putter for sure.
Tony, what about Viktor Hovland? I mean, he's
Victor.
been in that DS72, obviously having a lot of success with us. Tell us about your work with Viktor.
Viktor is he's different than most guys, and I say that with all due respect. It was probably 2 years ago at Congaree. I went up to Viktor and I said, hey, what are your thoughts on working on a new revision of the DS72, which he's playing and he's won with all these years? And he's like, well, what do you think? And I go, I don't know, maybe we should start a revision. And I basically said, is there anything when you look down this putter that you're like, man, if I could change that, if I could change this, the littlest thing is a radius, anything. And he looked at me and he said, I wouldn't change a thing. He turned around and walked off. And I said, hey, Viktor. And he turned around and looked back and I go, I agree. But he's the one guy, he doesn't really tinker a lot with his putter. He one time told me, which I think is interesting, he goes, the putter hasn't changed overnight. There's something that's in my stroke that I need to improve on to get back to where I was. He goes, that hasn't changed. Something here's changed. So I think that's kind of his philosophy with putting. We've tried a few different things, but he always ends up back where. And we all know he grinds. Like he works so hard to figure it out. So he's good like that.
To tie it back to Waste Management Week, I played with Viktor. He actually
You played with him when you played in the Phoenix Open?
he got a sponsor exemption. I'm the section qualifier.
Yeah, I mean, he turns pro in 19, so that would have been real early in his career.
I'm paired with Viktor Hovland. I was unbelievable, but he was using the same DS72 back then that he is now.
Yeah.
And when we had him on the pod, he talked about that. He said, "Hey, I'm not into the guys switching. They have a bad putting round, switching putters." He's like,
well,
I'm gonna get in here
Marty,
and
you know
embrace
this,
it.
but I mean, there's really two avenues, especially for pro golfers. It's like you switch a lot or you never switch. And I
Yeah.
mean, you see the guys out on tour that have used this. I mean, you think famously Tiger. I mean, Tiger used the same putter
Yeah.
for how many years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that you see on one side, and then you'll also see guys like I think Lee Westwood was a big tinkerer. Like he would change putters all the time, right?
Yep.
All the time. We went into. We've had him in the vault and got all the putters out that he's won with, and you're like.
Didn't you tell me that he
It
was
is
messing around with
crazy.
one time? He's like, I need to go back to this one. I like
Yeah,
this.
we were in the lab. He's like, "Oh, I'm trying to change my setup to back like I did in 1998 when I was putting like this." And we went and grabbed the putter because the putters in the lab, we matched the specs exactly. So it was the same length, angle, loft, and so we got it out and used it as a model.
He's like, I'm not going to use the gold one on tour.
Yeah.
Tony, just dive a little bit into the importance of getting fit for putters, because I feel like this is still that world. Wedges and putters still feel like the world that maybe people still are interested in maybe going and buying something off the rack. How important is it to go get fit?
So I was listening to you guys' podcast with, I think it was Corey.
Yeah.
And you guys were talking about, well, the driver's the most important club in your bag. And I'm like, I don't think it is.
Did you turn it off? Did you unsubscribe?
It's a healthy debate.
It's the,
I'm out on the pod.
but that's the one, in my opinion, the one club in your bag that is your scoring club,
Yep.
right? That you can make up strokes with.
You hit it on every hole in theory.
And people don't get fit for that. And it's just, it's something that I
Yeah.
know Marty and his
Yeah.
team and me, and we're working really hard on trying to get more people to get fit for putters, because it's so important, between if you're putting with a face bounce putter, but you should be in a strong arc, that's night and day. And if we can help get you into a putter that matches your stroke, we're not really in the lab or working with players on, especially me, I'm not out there to give you a putting lesson.
Yeah.
We're here to get a putter in your hand that looks good and that matches
what
your
you
stroke.
do, right.
Right. So
and
we always tell guys that I'm not here to. We want to just do your thing and let us get a putter in your hands that help your score.
And it's a confidence thing, at least for me personally, Marty. I don't know if you feel the same way, but like getting fit for a putter, knowing that the putter you're using is the right thing for you, it boosts the confidence on the greens because you can't question that club, right? I mean, you can't question something that has been measured and seen in terms of data to make sure it's perfect for what you're doing on the greens. I mean, I think it's important.
What I love that what we've done with PLD is brought the process that Tony has taken and our reps have taken with our tour players to the people, because now you can get fit we fit everyone on with iPing, same tool we use with the tour players, and you can customize sight lines. You use a line on the ball or not. Like we've talked to all these players over the last year, Shane, and they're all so different in what they do with their putting. We can embrace that in the PLD process. Tony, part of the PLD process is fitting for the sound and feel.
100%.
So tell us about our different milling patterns that you've developed. And again, this is all born from working with, like Bubba was probably the first one where we really dialed it in.
It
right?
is, yeah. Bubba used to be very specific about the milling on his face, and we've always called it Bubba groove. That's just what we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Is that deeper or is that deeper or
Shallow.
shorter? Oh, shallow.
Shallow, yeah. But even a step further back is we use, in the lab, we use different materials. We use a carbon steel and a stainless steel because in doing some of this stuff early on, we found that some players could tell the difference between a carbon steel and a stainless steel.
Yeah.
The carbon being just slightly softer and maybe not as loud. And some guys like that, and some guys like a little bit more feedback, a little bit more sound. So along with that, then we do 3 different group patterns on the face. One is smooth, and one is our shallow, and one is our deep. And all of them have a little bit different ball speed, and all of them have a little bit different sound and a little bit different feel. The deeper the groove or the pattern is on your face, the softer it is. And it takes a little bit off of the sound also.
What's your favorite club you've ever designed? Do you have one that comes to mind?
Of any club?
Any club. Any club you've designed, you put your hands on.
Let me throw this out there because we didn't get it with the intro, but Tony also is the chief designer of the Rapture driver, right?
Yep.
So
I'm assuming that's high on the list.
Very high.
and the
Is
Rapture
that number one?
V2, right?
Rapture and Rapture V2, I did design both of those.
Okay.
But yeah, those are very high. And even back to some of the early stuff when we first went into titanium and the Tai-Sci Tech. But they're all good, man. I love this is really cool working with these players and working on product for Ping. But yeah, Rapture would probably be pretty high up there.
What does it feel for you personally when you know how many hours you put in with somebody like Viktor or somebody like Tony, and you're watching on Sunday and you see him make a big 12-footer on the 16th green? Like, what does that do for you personally in this journey you've been on with Ping?
Pull the hamstring, jumping. No, just kidding.
I'm sidelined.
Warm up.
I'm
before
out
the
6
final
to
round.
8 weeks with Finau injury.
No, I just it feels great, right? Like that you've helped this guy. I mean, he's doing the work. He's doing all the stuff out there. But to know that you've contributed, our team has contributed, and this is all good for Ping in that we have a product, a player out there that's winning. It looks good for us. It looks good for all of us and our team because all of us work really hard on this product, and to see a win, it's just really good feeling for all of us.
Tony, talk a little bit about our machine shop and our machinists. Like, what is a day in the life of one of our machinists at Ping?
Okay.
You know, and what are the quality? You talked about Carson giving everybody, hey, you can stop the line, right? And that's still in our culture today.
100%.
Talk about a day in the life of one of our machinists at Ping who's working on our PLDs.
So one of the things when we first started working in the shop is a little bit of a culture change where a machinist, when they're down there, they're trying to get stuff out quick and fast and try and get stuff to market as quick as you can. So it took a little while to get guys to say, hey, slow down.
Yeah.
What's really important here is that we get the best looking putters, the best milled putters in golf. And a lot of the guys down there aren't golfers, so you have to kind of set up the expectation of what's going out there, what people are looking at, why this is so important. And to get those guys to really focus on the different details, the like you said, the speed, the step over on the different cuts, the different surfaces where everything kind of lines up. And I've even taken the guys, hey, let's go outside. I want to show you why this is important. When the sun hits this is what a player's seen. This is why that's important.
Yeah.
And they're just like, well, I'm not a golfer, but now I get it. So we have a few guys down there right now that's we joke at work, they put their PLD hat when they come into work every day, and that's all they work on. And they take a lot of pride in that now. When we get a win on a Sunday or something, like I'll get a text, was that our guy? It's our guy. And they're just like, yeah.
Love it.
So they are all in, and I do my best to keep motivated and know that we are making the best putters in golf. We are making the best milled putters in golf, and it's because of you. It's because the time you guys put in, the work you put in, the Saturdays we come in.
Yeah.
It's all that. And everybody's all in it for the same reason, to get the best putters out there and hopefully get some wins and go from there.
Tony, you bring up a good point. I think the classic machinist training by default is how do you optimize for speed, cost,
right.
productivity, throughpup.
And you have to kind of slow them down at times.
You're like, hey, we can choose the tool path that's going to take 20 minutes longer for the top of this putter. We can use a more expensive cutter, right?
You can change the cutter out every putter if you have to.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get that culture, but that cutter's still good. No, it's not. Look, it's starting to, that surface isn't what it should be.
In today's age, that's not the philosophy of a lot of companies. I mean, the philosophy of a lot of companies is like, let's churn out as much as we can, as fast as we can, as cheap as we can, and to be at a place where you're comfortable saying, take a little bit longer, let's change this out. It might cost a little bit more, but that's okay. I mean, that's got to make you feel great as well.
And I think that's our culture at Ping, is we've been taught and brought up there is, hey, make the best product. We'll figure this stuff out. Let's just make sure we got a really good product and get it out, and then we'll figure out the rest.
I got when PLD came out, I got an answer. I loved it. It was smooth faced. I got grooves put on the back end. Jeff did that for me.
Patina.
And it was patina, and it's just been down the line. Yeah. And they're just great. I mean, the putters are beautiful, and I'm with you. I think they're the best in golf. So you and your team are doing a great job.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Tony, talk a little bit about our different finishes that we offer.
Yes.
And what do they do to the look of the putter?
Yeah. So we offer 5 different finishes right now. We do the stainless steel. We offer a satin finish.
Okay.
And then the carbon steel, we do a patina. We do the black. We do an oyster, and we do a glazed donut. So those are 5 different
glazed
donut. You got to come see it.
I haven't seen it. Is this new? How did I not know about it?
It's fairly new, and I would mention back to
Does it
going
look
to
like a donut? What is the deal?
It's more of a golden.
I'm so interested in this.
It's mysterious.
Yeah.
It's mysterious.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
It's
Now
cool.
I want a donut.
It's nice.
I want a chili pepper and a donut after this podcast.
But see, and part of that goes back to working with guys in our shop. Is the patina was our guys in our shop just trying different stuff to come up with a new.
Is it like mixing? What is it like? I mean, this is from an idiot's perspective.
No.
Is it like mixing paint? Like, what are you doing to come up with that?
It's quite a long process, but
Yeah.
basically you heat it up with a torch.
Okay.
And you're putting a chemical on it, and then you
Seeing how it dries, basically.
Yeah, see how it dries, and then some steel wool, and a lot of times you got to redo it, but
But there's a lot of process control.
Lot
a lot of hand work done.
a lot of handwork.
Yeah.
And we continue to try and be more efficient at that and make it a faster process, but that finish, it is what it is because it takes the time, the handwork, and the steel wool, and working every surface to get it to look just right. And a lot of times you'll get done with a putter, and there's just some part of the putter didn't quite get hot enough, so it doesn't match the rest of it. So you go back and you blast it, and you start over till you get it right. That's where our guys, I think, it's just like they're so smart and they have so many good ideas, and then just working with them and listening to them that we can come up with stuff.
36 years
Yes,
at
sir.
Ping.
Yes, sir.
And you're going to keep rocking and rolling?
Yep.
Well, we appreciate everything you do. We appreciate you taking some time to chat with us.
I appreciate you having
The
me.
PLD line, and Marty and I have talked about it. We talked about it yesterday.
Oh.
I mean, it's a game changer. I mean, not just for putters, but for Ping in general. I mean, having this line and being able to look down at something that you're that confident in is pretty special.
It's Ping is we've always been there on the principles, but now it's also you look down at your putter and you fall in love with it because of all these nuanced details and everything that Tony's put into it. T, it's been great having you on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tony,
Thanks for
the
having me.
rock star, this is the Ping Proving Grounds podcast.